Hey everybody, it's PartyElite, and today we're taking a look at the Steam Spring Sale for 2023. As always, there's a ton of good stuff out there, but this video should bring to your attention some of the finest in strategy, city building, sim, and management gaming. If you find something here you like, consider hitting the like button. If you have thoughts of your own, drop them in the comments, and if you have friends with similar tastes, consider sharing the video. All that aside, with timestamps down below and no more time to waste with an intro, let's begin. Battletech is currently 75% off, just around $10, and it's an excellent turn-based tactics game set in the Battletech universe with an excellent narrative campaign and an even better sandbox campaign that was introduced a little after release. While the DLC adds some more additional mechs and stuff, you honestly don't need any of it to have a full experience with the game where you're leading a lance of pilots, leveling them up to gain access to additional skills and capabilities, but also customizing the mechs they pilot, adjusting armor distribution, where weapons and ammo are placed, and which mech body is being used in the first place, each with its own strengths and weaknesses. You'll slap flamethrowers and jetpacks on some light mechs to try and overheat and disable the enemies, while your heavier mechs will carry massive solid projectile turrets to punch through enemy armor and hope to knock their mechs over. In combat, there is a great degree of nuance as each turn you'll determine which weapons to use on any given mech, balancing their temperature to prevent overheating on your own mechs, and you'll also pick and choose not just which enemy to target, but which part of the enemy mechs to prioritize to try and nullify their most powerful weapons, to explode their ammo stockpiles, etc., etc. Outside of combat, apart from upgrading pilots and mechs, you'll travel from planet to planet, chasing after contracts of varying difficulty in varying biomes, gaining wealth, and then spending it to pay salaries, to upgrade your ship, to buy new parts, and more. We recently learned that the developers of Battletech are not currently working on a sequel, so there's no reason to hold out for that if that was any reason for your hesitation. I highly recommend grabbing Battletech because it is an absolute blast. Surviving the Aftermath is 30% off, just about $20, and with a new DLC releasing the same day as the start of the Steam sale, about 3.5 years since its release, you can tell the game's got a decent bit of post-launch support to keep it alive and feeling fresh. DLC aside, there is plenty in the core game to enjoy as you try to survive in a post-apocalyptic setting, establishing a colony, acquiring resources, and maintaining your people's basic needs of home, health, hygiene, and sustenance, all while researching a great variety of technologies to keep things operational. Apart from your average adult colonist, you'll also need to work around children and the strain they can apply without contributing, and you'll also directly control specialists among your colonists to have them pursue quests, scavenge resources, and battle bandits. Apart from activity at your own colony, you'll be able to zoom out to a randomly generated world map where you can seek out points of interest to investigate for potential resources, and where you can find other colonies that you may be able to trade with, something that becomes particularly important in the later stages of the game when resource scarcity starts to apply some serious pressure. You'll also need to explore this layer to engage with quests, going from location to location at times, making decisions based on your specialist's skills and the risks you're willing to take, and ultimately learning about how humanity might actually be able to recover from its dire circumstances. Surviving the Aftermath has some really interesting ideas that make it stand out from the crowd of post-apocalyptic colony management games. I think it's especially fun with the more challenging settings, as the world and the people that live in it are potentially out to get you at every turn. Natural disasters and weather conditions will apply pressure unexpectedly, and if you spend too much time traveling down the wrong path on the tech tree, you won't find your entire run ruined, but you will need to quickly adjust course to make sure you keep surviving, which, in my opinion, is an excellent way to approach such possibilities. Once you're done with the base game, there's a few pieces of DLC you can explore too, but honestly, the base game is all you need for a good experience here. Expeditions Rome is currently 50% off, making it just about $22, and this game was absolutely one of my favorites from last year. An isometric RPG with turn-based tactical combat where you also lead Rome's legions across 3 major military campaigns around the Mediterranean. There are a ton of fun mechanics to sink your teeth into, as well as a solid narrative with great visuals and just a fresh and unique take to the most familiar parts of the genre too. You play the child of a nobleman who has just been assassinated, and in order to keep you safe, you're sent off with some of your family's military friends, making plans for your return to Rome as a hero. The story will see you come across a variety of characters and party members, and it'll put you at the head of a massive host without too much delay, asking you to manage upgrades and development at your war camp, giving you the responsibility of assigning tasks to your troops to take advantage of various services, and allowing you to craft equipment based on resources you found out and about, but only if the appropriate upgrades to your war camp have been made. Outside of the war camp, you'll be traveling from city to city, dealing with random encounters on the road, engaging in side quests and companion quests, or diving into battle with your relatively small party and with your entire army alike. When your army engages the enemy, you'll have to pick and choose who commands your forces and what moves they make during different phases of the battle. But when it's a smaller engagement, your party engages in the familiar turn-based tactics style of combat. Even here though, there's a huge variety of skills available to your characters based not only on their character class, but also depending on the weapon combination they're using. Somebody with sword and shield has very different options compared to somebody with sword and dagger, and to be clear, the same person can have different sets of equipment, so they'll have different sets of skills depending on how they're currently equipped. It's not like each class is severely limited to the kind of equipment they're carrying. No, you can mix and match as you like, so one character can perform very differently between two battles depending on what they're carrying. The action point system is also extremely involved, introducing a sort of sub-economy to combat, and the fighting can get quite intense, especially since injuries can fester and escalate if not treated at the war camp, and particularly grievous wounds will result in potentially permanent penalties to a character's stats. There are many interesting mechanics working in tandem to make Expeditions Rome such a great time, and I can highly recommend picking it up. DUNE Spice Wars is currently 20% off, available for just $30, and it's a very interesting real-time 4X game set in the DUNE universe that has been getting a pretty constant slew of updates since it released into early access, making it a fun game to play with friends or solo against the AI. You can pick from a handful of different houses, each with their own strengths, weaknesses, and unique mechanics, and within each house, you can choose from a selection of advisors who will further impact your playstyle to broaden the opportunities as far as playstyles are concerned. Once you do so, you will deploy on a randomly generated map of Arrakis, where you'll need to expand to adjacent provinces, eliminate the local populace, secure regional capitals, and exploit the available resources in order to keep units, buildings, and money alike all flowing. All this, of course, while competing against other players. There are a few different ways to win any single game of DUNE, so you won't always be at each other's throats, churning out units to eliminate one another. Instead, there'll be a time and place for diplomacy, for a focus on gaining influence, and for the manipulation of the Landsrat, the representative body that doles out buffs and debuffs based on how players vote for the assignment of each one, with, again, some factions having unique interactions with the voting system since they're technically not part of the actual voting process as per the universe's lore. A bunch of little things add up to make DUNE Spice Wars unique and flavorful, and some of the more recent free updates have added to the already existing variety available in the game, and hey, variety is the spice of life after all. From espionage and subterfuge to tech trees and building upgrades, the classic aspects of the 4X space are very much in place too, alongside the innovative elements, the real-time approach, and of course, the amazing asymmetry in faction design. I can highly recommend checking out DUNE Spice Wars, especially if you grab it with a handful of friends to play with and against each other. Nebulous Fleet Command is currently 25% off, available for less than $20, and honestly, that price is an absolute steal for such a fantastic game, and now is an excellent time to dive in with some buddies, especially with the addition of the scrappier new faction to the base game with their own lore, new ship layouts, and new tools of the trade that adds on a whole set of options as far as customization and gameplay is concerned. If you're even remotely a fan of hard sci-fi, The Expanse, or the idea of what military combat in space might theoretically look like, buying Nebulous Fleet Command is an easy decision. In its current state, there's a deep tutorial, the option to skirmish against the AI, and a fully operational multiplayer system alongside a fairly active community that's playing the game. In it, you'll design and take to battle a custom fleet of military spaceships based on a point-buy system. You can choose to use the provided presets, you can share amongst friends or the rest of the community, or you can build your own from scratch. Should you decide to edit or build from scratch, you'll get to determine how many ships you want of which types of hulls, and then you'll go through each of them to assign weapons, electronic warfare equipment, engines, reactors, point defense weapons, and much more. The level of customization literally goes down to the missile, as you can even edit what your missile bays are carrying, what kind of targeting systems they use, how much fuel they have, what kind of payload they've got, so on and so forth. It's really quite intense, even if it's entirely optional for somebody looking for a bit of a lighter experience. The level of attention to detail isn't just for designing your fleet, though. In combat, you'll be working with full 6 degrees of freedom, moving through space as needed to dodge, ambush, flee from, or chase the enemy, worrying about factors like inertia, or how the facing of your ship impacts which weapons have line of sight, or just how much of your own ship is exposed to enemy fire. When you take damage, repair crews inside your ships rush from module to module to get repairs done, but turning your ship appropriately might protect the more important parts while exposing the expendable. You'll deal with radar signatures, homing missiles, laser targeting, electronic warfare, and just so much absolutely insanely cool and believable stuff that the game feels like a glimpse into a milsim of the far future. Nebulous Fleet Command is challenging in all the right ways, and it's well worth picking up at full price, let alone on sale. King Arthur Knight's Tale is currently 35% off, bringing its price to around $37, and this rather dark and gritty isometric RPG with turn-based tactical combat didn't get nearly enough love at launch. Playing as the classic villain in King Arthur's story, Sir Mordred, you've been risen from the dead by the Lady of the Lake in order to kill King Arthur. Clearly, he's become a bit of a problem. In order to take him out, you'll need to rebuild Camelot bit by bit, securing access to additional resources and capabilities, and as you're doing so, you'll need to assemble your band of anti-heroes, seating them at your own dark round table, handing out court titles, establishing decrees, and training aspirant into full-fledged warriors to take with you on quests across the land. These quests will include exploration and combat both, with the latter taking the familiar turn-based tactics approach, though pitting you against some extremely unique beasts from myth, with very fun considerations to keep in mind as you discover new foes and engage with them for the first time especially. Heroes can and will die if you're not careful, and each of your heroes will have their own degree of loyalty to your cause, as well as their own personality traits and goals. You yourself will have to manage your own moral compass. Decisions you make will determine how the narrative plays out at times, and apart from that, where you stand morally will determine what abilities you'll have access to, particularly on the battlefield. Morality is an interesting system here, balancing not just how you reign, but also what faith you align yourself to, and there is the potential to get a few runs in as a result of that, and the variables when you assemble your fighting force too. I had a great time with King Arthur Knight's Tale, and I felt it balanced the grit and darkness very nicely to avoid coming off as, cheesy or over the top. At this price especially, it's a great deal. Battle Brothers is currently 50% off, available for just $16, and it remains one of my all-time favorite games to play in the world of sandbox RPGs with turn-based tactical combat. While the DLC adds some additional starting backstories, monsters, and equipment, none of them are necessary to have a good time, especially considering the free content that was added to the game just last year too, adding a couple of fresh backstories with interesting limitations that you can choose from. Regardless of how you decide to go about it, Battle Brothers is about leading a band of mercenaries in a medieval fantasy setting, traveling from city to city, taking on quests to build relationships, fighting all manner of monsters, including bandits, and hoping to survive to the endgame while trying to keep your entire band of brothers alive. Unforgiving combat with unique and fresh enemy types will make that a challenge, with injuries that can ruin a career before it even starts, and with skilled replacements being quite expensive to hire, leaving you at the behest of farmers and fishermen until you've gained some momentum. Intricate combat mechanics will further challenge you as you try to minimize damage to enemy armor that you want to loot, or as you try to use outnumbering and push and pull mechanics to your advantage, and what's more, sometimes these intricate mechanics get really inventive too. From the simpler things like how stabbing a skeleton is less effective than bludgeoning it, to my favorite example of the one monster that you're better off fighting butt naked rather than fully armored because of how it operates. Battle Brothers is charming, it's clever, and it's unique. Even though many other sandbox RPGs have come afterward, Battle Brothers remains, in my eyes, the pinnacle in so many ways for so many reasons. Whether you're buying paint to get matching color schemes on your shields, or you're hiring traveling companions, or you're nervously tracking rations, wages, and your party's moods. It's a fantastic game, well worth experiencing over and over and over again, and I can highly recommend buying it. There you have it, folks. Some great selections from the Steam Spring Sale. Try saying that 5 times real fast. If you found something here you liked, let me know below by hitting the like button. And again, if you have any recommendations of your own, drop them in the comments below. As always, I love seeing what others are into. For more gaming content about the genres you saw today, make sure you subscribe as I constantly make reviews, previews, let's plays, guides, and more. And as always, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big old thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.